Blog Talk Radio.
Hello everyone, this is Chrism and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of our Kundalini Awakening Conversations with me about your Kundalini Awakening experiences, and I'm going to jump right into this now. We don't have a chat room because neither Amelia or I have a laptop available to us, so we're here in the hotel room in the lovely city of St. Albans in England, United Kingdom. And so we're speaking on one defunct old iPad. This is the one I have here, and then the slightly newer, almost defunct iPad of Amelia's, she's on her phone. She's not even on the iPad. She's on her phone, so we can't. We're somewhat limited technologically, but let's go ahead and jump into this. If you want to call in, if you want to listen to the show, the call-in number right off, didn't they? What's the number? Why? Oh, she's here in the room, so she can't really talk. So this is pathetic. All right. Kundalini is left behind in many of the ancient cultures that you'll come across if you do any traveling around this world. You'll feel it in China, you'll feel it in Australia, you'll feel it in North America, Canada, Mexico, South America, Europe. Every continent that has human beings, you will feel pieces of Kundalini. When you walk into some of the older places, as I've been doing lately here in St. Albans, England, you'll come across traces of Kundalini left on the walls, left on the stone, left on some of the sacramental type of things that you might find in a church, say from the 6th or 7th century A.D. This type of activity is fairly common for a Kundalini awakened person who's traveling. When you come into some of these areas, such as the St. Albans Cathedral, you come into areas where you walk into zones of like exaltation, zones of peri or semi-enlightenment. You walk in there, you just want to stand, or you just want to sit, you just want to meditate or to pray. St. Albans here was a healing center. And so many people, before the American Medical Association existed, they came here to the St. Albans Medical Association, and there they talked with divinity, they beseeched divinity, they asked divinity to give the healing that they needed. And at that time, enough people were receiving these healings that it brought people from all over Europe, from all over that part of the world. In the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th centuries, people were streaming into St. Albans in order to receive healing. You must understand that with Kundalini people, certainly with Kundalini people that have been injured, like say a lower back injury, or they can't walk, or they're on crutches, or whatever, it becomes an extremely hard journey to heal. And not only are you dealing with being unable to be mobile, or in many cases, you're also dealing with wolves, you're dealing with bears, you're dealing with bandits and criminals and soldiers and all of the different aspects of life in the 2nd and 3rd century, which was still highly Roman. This was a very, very Roman area, and the Romans of the cross would find out, about 1,000 years later, maybe 1,300 years later, torture can activate the Kundalini. Somebody starts pounding a mallet on your lower spine, or purposefully breaking your tailbone, well, that can activate the Kundalini, and that Kundalini can rush it up and leave traces of itself in the holy healing sites. Now, I was just in St. Albans today, and just for those of you who are pursuing this on the internet, St. Albans is spelled, Saint, capital S-T, period, and then capital A-L-B-A-N-S. And that is, once again, that is in UK. And this became such a famous place that it was the major center of healing in all of Great Britain in the 2nd, 3rd centuries, and actually some of the centuries later on. After they killed. Well, the story with Saint Alban is he's a Roman guy living here in this city, which is called, a very difficult name for me to pronounce. It's called Valamunium, something like that. And I'm sorry. St. Albans is much easier to say. There's been remnants of the old Roman city wall here, and many of the churches and buildings are built from the materials that the Romans had used to build this city. This was the 3rd largest city in England in the 2nd century. And anyway, so the Romans were a huge fixture at the time, and it was illegal to be a Christian. And there's one Christian priest asked a Roman guy to hide him from the soldiers who were pursuing him. Well, so he did, and his name was Alban, and Mr. Alban, hid this priest, and the priest told him the story, and basically, upon hearing the priest's rendition of the Christian principles, well, this Alban, Mr. Alban, he liked those principles, and he liked those principles so much that he helped the priest escape by giving him some of his own clothing so that the soldiers would think that it was Mr. Alban that was escaping and not the priest. And the priest did indeed escape. And so the soldiers found out about the duplicity, and Mr. Albans was hauled up in front of the judge, and the judge was, they tried to whip him and torture him into renouncing Christianity as his belief system, and he didn't, and so they condemned him to death, and they took him up onto a hill over here about a mile away, and they cut his head off, and that was how Mr. Albans became Saint Albans, and that's the story, and ever since where his body was buried, a church was built, and that church had healing properties, which drew people from all over the civilized world at the time to receive a healing from this area, and people were receiving it. You can't deny what the people were receiving, and much of what they were receiving was of a divine quality, and that divine quality is what we're talking about today with regards to the Kundalini. So when you go into these places, you feel energetic hot spots. You feel, and we're not talking about ghosts or anything like that. Of course, you can feel those things as well. But I didn't, not this particular chapel. This particular chapel has a very, very holy feeling to it. Very, very holy feeling. And I'm gonna bring on, it looks like Joey, Her Holiness Joey. And hello, Joey. How are you? Hello. Didn't think I'd call on you, did you? Maybe I better call on somebody else here. Maybe she's, doing something here. Let's talk to Miss Eileen. Hello, Eileen.
Hi, Chrism.
Hey, how are you, poor girl?
Oh, I'm fine. I'm enjoying your visit here.
Can you hear us okay? I'm just doing a sound check, my dear.
It's kind of warbly. Last week it was beautiful. It's a bit warbly this week.
Warbly, huh? Like that?
No, I can't. Kind of fading in and out, but.
Let me hear you do a warble for me. Come on.
Oh, it's like you're underwater periodically.
Underwater. Maybe if I hold it close. How is this right now?
You're fine right now.
Okay, I'll just I will huddle over this iPad and hope for the best. Thank you, my dear. Thank you for the.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So yes, and so people would flock to this area, and you can feel the vibrations of the divine encounters that they would have. At least, I mean, I'm floating around there, and I'm just like feeling this and feeling that. And I know Amelia and one of our fellow travelers here that I want to introduce you to. Her name is Manisha, and many of you will know her off of the Facebook. And I believe, Manisha, you've been on the radio show in the chat room as well?
Yes.
And this is Manisha, everybody.
Hallo, god aften, og velkommen til showet med Chrism og Kundalini.
That was something she said in Danish. So very, very nice and very nice. And Manisha, I would like to ask you, have you any of the things that I'm talking about here on the show with regards to that church?
Yes, very much.
What did you feel?
I had to cry, and I went to certain places where I was standing, and I just.
Did you feel like you had been there in another time? Did you get a deja vu experience? Tell us about that.
Definitely. I wanted to go into a certain door, and it was closed. And I went into the old part, and I just noticed them, and I even when I finger touched my forehead, my heart, and the two chakras on the shoulders, like the Catholics do when they have been to mass, and it's not normally something that I do. And I had to go and sit in front of the altar on this rail. I don't know what it's called in English, and
what was your doing when you were there, to rephrase it?
It led me places to stand, and I at some point I had sort of shivers up the whole body through, and I had to cry because it was so familiar and to be there and it felt like coming home.
Thank you, everybody. That's Manisha. Thank you, Manisha. Yeah. So she's feeling this, and Santara's feeling this, and I'm gonna bring the Celtic Queen of Questionable Comforts on over and have her talk with you about this. What was your feelings with this, Amelia?
Well, first of all, when we arrived, it was a magnificent sight because the outside of the church has been constructed from the walls, as Chrism said earlier, of the ancient Roman town in the area.
And they built everything in flint.
Yeah.
People. Everything's flint here.
And it was Manisha pointed this stone out to us because I wasn't that familiar with it. And it's an amazing stone. It's got this grey metallic look about it. And they've combined this with a flat sandstone, red sandstone. So it's really, really distinctive. So we went in, and it's quite huge. Apparently it boasts the second largest nave. Is it the second largest or the largest?
The largest.
The
longest nave. You can imagine how that nave was treated in other parts of the country, but go ahead.
So it was the longest nave in England. So it's a very, very, strong and powerful feeling in that church of something that has stood down through the centuries. So from the point of view of my Kundalini, when I went in there, it was a really, really nice, as Chrism said, holy feeling about the place. We had been in a church earlier in London. I won't name it, but I didn't have the same feeling at all. It would have been a feeling of, oppression and pain. This church didn't have that. And so the three of them, when we went in, it really, really felt good. And the Kundalini in me responds in this way, in a tactile way, up in my back and the top of my head in particular. Not so much the top, but the back half, as if it's not there and my face is. And so it was very beautiful. There was a lot of different things that we enjoyed looking at, and we shared some of it, and we did it separately as well. And we had a very, very nice meditation. Chrism asked if we could go, this was on our first visit, if we could go to a very old part of the church for meditation. And the gentleman showed us in a very small little area right next to the main altar. And there were other people with us that day. We had 2 other visitors with us. And I must say I had an amazingly beautiful meditation. And the Kundalini in me, in a tactile way and in a blissful way. I also had tears, different reasons to minutia, but a very beautiful experience, Chrism. And we repeated it again today. And I think we may be going back again.
Probably so. Thank you, Santara. Thank you very, very much. So very, very, very special places exist on this world, and I don't care if you're going to Egypt. I don't care if you're going to any of the amazing cathedrals of France and Spain and Germany and Switzerland and the other places in Europe that have these really these structures that have been here for a long time. Once again, Saint Albans is there since the 2nd century after Christ, when Romans were the dominant political and oppressive force in Europe, and so a lot of people, a lot of feet have traveled that ground and have lived here and were born here and have died here and have moved on. And so it has a very, very, very strong sense of history, but also of the passage of time. And yet within a Kundalini context, the passage of time can be instantaneous. You can go thousands of years, just boom, right there. So, for instance, I'm touching the door, one of the ancient doors that they had there, and it's just like this film on fast rewind that you're just seeing little glimpses from, but you're not just seeing it, you're feeling it, you're smelling it, you're there, and you don't say anything about it because you're kind of not supposed to say anything about it. The more you talk about it, the less you're given those experiences when it comes to some of the wild Siddhic skills. And so you just hold it in and you feel it. Now, I'm allowed to give it to you right now because I don't really care about aggrandizing myself with it. You guys have heard all of this stuff before in different scenarios. And so I do encourage anybody who wants to feel some of these things to come over here to St. Albans. The economy would love your participation in their economy. And just remember that, Britain has this really, 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 really amazingly expensive money here. So, a U.S. dollar is really worth about 60 cents, and I don't know what a euro is worth, but it's not that much more, maybe 68 cents. And so just by coming into the country, you lose money, and so there's something for you to consider. When we went in, now I was here to speak at a conference that I was invited to, and the talk went well. I mean, of course, there's always the biggest room in the house is room for improvement, and I will be putting together a PowerPoint presentation, I think, and learning how to use those little things. But while we were here, we were able to visit some of the churches and wow, some of the churches here, you can really feel the Kundalini strongly. And what was that church we went to with all the saints, Amelia?
Well, we went to Westminster Cathedral. That was a very, very, that was a beautiful church.
This is the one built by the Irish?
Yeah, the history of that, if I'm remembering correctly, is, well, there was Westminster Abbey, and of course, way back in the time of Henry VIII, when Henry VIII changed from being a follower of the Pope because he wanted to remarry and the Pope wouldn't allow it, he rejected Rome, and so he set up his own religion. And at that time then, he plundered all of the Catholic churches that were not going along with him being now, in charge of the religion. And so there was a long, long history here of having no Catholic churches going way, way back to the time. And then at some stage there was, I can't remember which century, maybe the 17th or something like that. But anyway, as time went on, it was realised that this wasn't okay and that people should be allowed to practice their faith. And so, long story short, Westminster Cathedral was to be built, separate from Westminster Abbey. And at the time when they were building it, the bishop wanted to have a very, very different style of Westminster Abbey. And so he employed a particular architect who went around the world and began to look at the different architectures that were around the world. And he went to places in Italy, and I think North Africa, and definitely the East. And this is a very, very different church insofar as there are no stained glass windows in this church. It is very much of the Byzantine period. At least it took some of the architectural aspects from that period, and there's a very Eastern feeling to it as well. And what's amazing is that it was built, actually, Chrism is right, around the time of the famine, because a lot of the Irish came over to England and they were used to build this church, cathedral. And I think it was built in a very, very quick time, like maybe 8 or 9 years, which is a very, very short period of time. And what's very interesting, when we walked in, there is no colour in this church whatsoever, except that you see in the mosaics. And there are a lot of mosaics. And the big, huge, high dome ceiling, which is in domes along the way, this is very, very black. And we asked, why was this so black? And we were told that it is still a work in progress. And so that's a very interesting aspect, that it is not yet finished.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful place. And, you know, the Kundalini angle on this is that it had some extremely beautiful depictions of saints. You had a lot of the saints, and you get a lot of the stories of the saints, and you can only imagine how their Kundalini became active because of the really difficult times that they were in. Now, I've moved the iPad into kind of like a cupboard, so maybe the sound is different here. I'm going to go ahead and give Eileen a ring again here. Hi, Eileen.
Hello. You're sounding fine. Amelia was going in and out, but you're sounding fine right now.
Oh, good. I moved it into this little sound chamber. Let's hope that works. Thank you, my dear.
You're welcome.
Okay, yeah, moving on. And so we were able to walk in the footsteps, and at least in some of the burial chambers, actually, of some of these saints. And, of course, you feel a strong sense of holiness in some of these places. And I know you're thinking, well, you're in a church, of course you're going to feel that way, but not all churches felt that way. And as Amelia mentioned before, a lot of the churches didn't feel that way at all. You know, and there was this one church right near Big Ben that just was, all you felt really were the wars that the soldiers buried in the walls had fought in. It was more of a war memorial than a church, although it was set up as a church. And a lot of these churches, you know, will have a lot of dead people that you're walking on, literally. Fairly common in Europe, you know, for people that were to be buried in a church. Well, they would provide the money for the church to be built, and so they'd get to have their little grave marker right there in the church, and here lies so-and-so, and you know, 1673 or whatever it is. But here at St. Albans, it's very, very, it's a clean church. It's not to say that they're not, you know, they have a little bit of a construction project going on in there, but the energy is very, very clean, and it's not mixed up in that whole Henry VIII debacle with, you know, oh, I'm going to make my own religion because I want to mess with this other woman and the Pope won't give me a divorce, so here we go. it's not all about that type of thing, because it predates all of that to the 2nd century, and that changes the dynamic. Pardon me for that noise. That changes the dynamic of the place, because you don't have that distraction, you don't have that disruption. Sure, it survived through it, but it wasn't really a part of that. It was there long before King Henry VIII, and once again, being a place of healing. They didn't have hospitals. They relied on Kundalini awakened people and on the divine itself. They relied on those that was the AMA of the time, and this place here is a holy place with regards to the healing and to the Kundalini. And so once again, you can go into the place and you can feel the Kundalini left there by the people who had it and didn't even know they had it. They probably thought it was some divine gift, which it is, of course, but they didn't know that they had it. But they would leave traces of it on the walls, on the floor, as I mentioned earlier. And not only there, but also, you can go to that Roman wall and you can feel energetics coming from that Roman wall just by virtue of your Kundalini reaching into the wall, reaching into the stones. Because once again, we all know that Kundalini does not disintegrate. It is not part of our environment in the idea that it falls apart over time. Kundalini is a divine energy, and divinity does not have time constraints. It's far beyond time constraints. And as we explore some of these peoples here, you begin to, as you read their stories, like St. Albans' story, he could have just said, hey, the guy misheard me, and he held me at knife point, and I didn't really have an option, and I just had to, give him my clothes. All of that. He could have gone all into that, but he chose not to. He chose to speak his truth and to willingly die for his truth. And we don't see a lot of that today, except perhaps really in the people who are martyring themselves for Islam. People who truly believe that they're going to get 72 virgins, but without a body. What are you going to do with those? Sorry. The whole martyring thing is dying for the truth of your beliefs, for dying for the truth of your belief in God and how God is interpreted by you. Well, these people did the same thing. Christians are no different than modern Islamists. They died by the sword instead of the bomb. But death is death, and it reaches you either way. And they died for their belief system. And this is there's a level of discipline in there. There's a level of truth in there, and there's a level of fearlessness and courage and grace within that choice, is to sacrifice yourself, your life, for the benefit of another. To sacrifice all those sunrises and sunsets so that another person can live, and you won't live. Okay, and that leads me straight into the discipline of the Kundalini and how different it is. It reflects so clearly the difference between somebody who isn't really believing or doesn't have a strong level of inner faith, strong level of trust that they give into the divine, and it really separates the wheat from the chaff, as to quote that biblical thing. But with the Kundalini, you must begin to change your strength of trust. You must begin to change your strength of surrender. This is what a lot of these people, I think, are pointing at when they decide to stick to their guns no matter what. And many Christians died at the hands of the Romans because, they wanted to believe a different way, and that was illegal in that society. And so they would die, and they would die in some of the most cruel ways, being fed to tigers or lions, or, cut to pieces just to
entertain the crowd, which really got old for the crowd fairly quickly when they saw their own sons and daughters who had decided to become Christians, get cut down by the Roman sword. But these people stood up for what they believed in, and there's a specific discipline to that is related to the Kundalini. You have to stand up to the to what society tells you. You stand up for your Kundalini. You don't necessarily tell everybody, "Oh, I'm standing up for my Kundalini. I'm willing to die for my Kundalini." No. Instead of martyring yourself with your life, you martyr your ego. You martyr your desires. You martyr buying in to the economic illusion. You martyr the pornography. You martyr the alcoholism. You martyr the drug abuse and the criminal sense. You martyr the lack of ethics. You martyr insufficient morality. These are the things that you martyr in yourself. You martyr having entities tell you what to do. You martyr having to be aggrandized for being a special person. You put that away. You don't need to be adulated or regarded as some sort of a saint in order to make yourself feel better about you or your life. These are the things that we martyr within the continuum. These are the things that we martyr there. And it's not as easy as you think. It's not as easy as you think, because really, once the community gets hold of you, you have nowhere to go. You have nowhere to go. Kundalini or bust. And bust isn't really good either, because you don't really get an opportunity to bust, because Kundalini will bust you even further. I mean, it's just, you choose which way you want to go. You want to go up, you want to go down. You want to go down, you want to go back into severe levels of refinement and pain and loss and victimization, all of that stuff. You don't need to go there. That's something that you can martyr on your path. Those qualities that I just mentioned. You go forward. You go up. You improve your surrender. You improve your renunciation of programming addiction. Programming addiction would be what you get on TV, would be what you get on the internet, what you get on books, what you see plastered on the walls as you're on your bus driving to work, or what you see on the subway walls, or what you see advertised in on billboards and things of those natures. Let those be martyred in your Kundalini equation. Let those activities that slow you down. Some of you are being really, really, really confined. No friends, no family, no work. Very, very limited opportunities for entertainment that the rest of the people would go to. Some of you are you're really being pushed into a highly compressive star chamber, and you're being changed radically from the inside out. So in a way, your old life is being martyred. Your old life is being martyred for the Kundalini, for the divine life that is unfolding within you. This is the only option for you. There are those of you that are listening to this, those of you that are listening to this live right now, those of you that are listening to this on your computer, those of you that are listening in the future in the archives. I'm sorry I couldn't get a chat room open because this iPad doesn't do that. Blog Talk won't let it happen. But there are those of you that are being pushed into a container of Kundalini at the cost of the entertainments and the diversions and the distractions that our society offers. And I want you to embrace that container. I want you to embrace that container and take the chalice that you are, that holy glass that you are, and you dump that out. You dump it out inside of this great Kundalini container that you're standing in, and you let yourself be purified. You let yourself become extremely submissive to Kundalini, extremely surrendered to Kundalini, extremely blended with Kundalini. This is what it's all about. You no longer are living the life that you had before. That life, as I said before, has been martyred. You're no longer stuck in the paradigm of, oh, am I living my life correctly? Oh, am I living up to what my parents thought I should be? Oh, am I living up to what my spouse wants me to be, or my boyfriend, or my girlfriend, or my kids? Am I living up to the expectations of others? Am I living up to the expectations of my programming that I received as a child? Or am I moving forward past these blockages, past these impediments to the divine infusion that the Kundalini represents? What are you doing, my friends? Where are you lining up when it comes time for you? Either surrender to the Kundalini or not. And is there really an option to not surrender? I'll suggest there is not. The not option. Okay. Your denial of the Kundalini is another aspect of your Kundalini equation that is to be martyred. And for those of you that don't know what martyred means, that means to die for your belief, to die for your belief system. And Kundalini is as much a belief system as it is a physical condition, as it is a mental condition and a spiritual condition. It is all of these conditions, which is how it supersedes and goes beyond, your five-body human equation. Kundalini is there to change you, and you must surrender in order to allow it to change you from the inside out. You need to lose all aspects of the programming and the traditional-based understandings of what is right and what is wrong when it comes to the Kundalini. It's not saying that the Kundalini is going to, turn you into a criminal or anything like that. What is saying is those taboos and those fears and those issues of false ethic no longer pertain to you anymore inside of the Kundalini. You do not follow those rules. You follow the rules of the divine, and the divine within you, what's going to tell you what to do and what not to do. And it's not going to tell you with a voice all the time, although sometimes it does that. Most of the time it tells you through the physical feeling, through the emotional feeling, through the reception of dreams and the reception of visions. It tells you through these synchronicitous events of your daily life, where you see a certain kind of number pattern, or you see a blue or a white feather just falls on you in front of you, at the right moment. You look at that, you go, oh my gosh, that is not an accident. And you don't always have to have a belief in an omen, but the Kundalini will give you omens. So you think about this now. Think about what you're ready to martyr in your life that is impeding your Kundalini equation. Are you going to martyr your pride, your jealousy, your hatred, your anger, your fear, your loss, your laziness, your having gluttony? Are you ready to martyr some of these qualities? Are you ready to martyr your self-invalidation? Are you ready to martyr some of that? Are you ready to martyr some of the need to be told what to do all the time, rather than reaching out and knowing what you need to do and then doing it, especially when it goes against your comfort zone? You ready to martyr that? Let's see what Eileen's ready to martyr here. Let's see, go ahead. Hey there, sister. Hello, Eileen.
Oh, I wasn't sure if you were talking to me. Yes, I'm here.
What are you ready to martyr in your Kundalini life?
Well, I have a situation now where I'm going to be doing a flush of sorts for a clean out, and it's not something I really want to do, but I know that I need to do it. So I'm doing that.
So you're martyring your comfort level with regards to this flesh. Well, that's a great
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
That is really good. That's really good. And how do you feel about what I'm talking about as far as martyring these things that are getting in the way of your Kundalini expression? How do you feel about that, Eileen?
Well, it feels true. It is. I feel it is necessary to give up. Give up. It's another word. Martyr. You're using that word.
It's only because it's St. Albans that I'm using the word martyr.
Right. I know. But for myself, it's been martyring or giving up friends and desires, things that I want or would like to have. It's not in my control anymore. So, yes, what you're saying does make a lot of sense.
All right, my dear. Well, thank you for letting me interrupt your listening pleasure, and I'll let you go right back there, okay?
Thank you. Bye.
And that's Eileen Lauro, everybody, our one of the oldest and most faithful of our Kundalini organizers and administrative staff for Kundalini Awakening Systems, and she's telling you truthfully, that how she feels about this, and it is that way. I mean, there are people that are undergoing right now strong levels of the martyrdom of their ego, the martyrdom of their wants and their desires and their articulated virtues and their self-aggrandizement and their need for levels of entertainment that are not within the Kundalini continuum, and so they are martyring these things. And what a blessing that is for them, because as they get rid of those blockages, as they get rid of those impedances or impediments, they become free, and you can actually feel this freedom when it lands upon you. You can feel it, and the Kundalini will respond by in your spine by spreading itself out. You'll start to feel the beginning of the halo. Some of the folks are feeling that right now. This is a very, very, very important topic, and I want you all to take it seriously. And it doesn't matter if you hear this information now or 10 years from now. Use this information, use this opportunity right now to begin to make changes in your life about how you create a cocoon for your Kundalini development. That's what this is. This is Kundalini development, and how much of it are you buying into? How much of it are you lifting your own finger? How much work are you willing to do? How much sacrifice are you willing to make? A lot of you have to go to work every day. You got to go to work. You got to prepare for work. You have to meet the people, the general public. You have to look them in the eye and say, okay, you need to learn this, and that. But at the same time that you're doing that, you're radiating Kundalini all over them. And you must know this, and you must consciously know this. Consciously make that shift in understanding. Not only are you teaching them a certain subject, if that's what you're doing, or not only are you serving them a certain food at their table, or helping them, get over a cold or an injury. Not only are you, cleaning a bathroom, public area. Not only are you growing crops, but you're spreading Kundalini all over this world, and this world needs it right now. There are a lot of people coming into the Kundalini, and I'm counting on you, and they're counting on you too. They're counting on you to do this work right now so that you can help them with their work later on. And the work is changing this world, changing and protecting its environment, and beginning to have a strong level of respect for the life forms that populate this world. It's a huge responsibility. and a beautiful responsibility and a great opportunity to begin to really prove to those portions of yourself that identity is there, is interest to you, and therefore you are semi-divine. Kundalini makes you semi-divine. Think about that. Now, I know those of you that are science, or you're scientist, or if you can't prove it, then it doesn't exist, and things of that nature. Well, that's fine, but you got to remember that you're operating from a paradigm that was born in the past. Science is only 300 years old, okay, and it's based upon metaphysics, the metaphysics of the Dark Ages, of the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th centuries. And those understandings are also based on the same understandings that St. Albans here was founded in. The Roman gods, and then the Christian gods, and then the pagan gods, that came after the fall of Rome, and everybody kind of like scrambled to take over different areas. Nobody was there given immunizations loaded with thalidomide, to turn little infants into babies that are born flippers. Nobody was there, trying to do, DNA control on people, or to separate those who don't want to have an immunization from those who do. And nobody was doing that back then. They were doing it with religion, but they weren't doing it with the medical body, with physiologics of the people. There wasn't a lot of that going on. There was grace going on, grace and severe levels of hardship, which brings out grace in people. And it takes me back to this other topic that I'm talking to you about. What are you willing to martyr in your life? Are you willing to martyr your lack of trust in your divine element? Are you willing to martyr that? To strengthen your trust in the divine, strengthen your faith in the divine, strengthen your communication with the divine, strengthen the infusion of the divine within you. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to take instruction from the divine within you? Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to learn? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to change who you are right now into who you are becoming right now? Getting rid of that anger and that need to control, getting rid of that need to resist, or that need to fight, or that need to be right, or that need to be wrong, or that need to be whatever that you're doing that's getting in the way of your Kundalini. You willing to let that go? That's what we're talking about, letting that go. Listen to what I'm going to do now, and let it flow into you. Let it flow into your ears. Let it flow into your blood. Let that blood transport it all throughout your system. Let it flow into your energetic anatomy and into your energetic envelope. Let it flow into your tailbone at the last 3 vertebrae, and let it flow into your Kundalini. Listen up. Feel the Kundalini in my voice, and let that permeate your system. Let that permeate the love that you feel for your life, the love that you feel for the divine that is guiding your life. Take that Kundalini in that voice and spread it throughout your body. Let that be an audible Shaktipat for you. Take a moment and do this. Do that. Do that work. Lift that mental finger. Another thing I want to talk to you about today is when you're doing energetic exercises, I want you to always couple it with emotional exercises. Don't just count on the physical to get you to a certain area and then, okay, I'm done. So for instance, just don't count on the 5 Tibetans or the certain breathing techniques of the safeties. You must always couple it with a devotional or an emotional practice. So for instance, if you're doing a devotion practice and you're doing very, very, very well with that devotion practice, you're really feeling the energy amp up and it's really spreading through you and you're getting a very, very strong trance-like infusion of Kundalini. The next thing I want you to do before you quit is I want you to forgive 10 people in your life. You forgive 10 people and you forgive yourself with regards to how you responded to those 10 people that may have hurt you in whatever way they did, and how you responded. You forgive yourself in whatever way you responded. And I want you to look at family members first, because families have the ability to push those buttons. Not saying that it's that way for all families. I'm just saying that for many families, the family member can push a button stronger than a stranger. Okay? Make sure that when you're doing anything that is adding more Kundalini into the system, that you begin to balance the emotional qualities. And these are done through forgiveness. You forgive, and you do it each time, each day. And you don't have to forgive the same people. You can move it down, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And pretty soon you might run out of people that the Kundalini in you is bringing up for forgiveness. And then you just look at look in the news, forgive some leader of a country for taking over another country, or forgive wars of the past, or forgive what's happening to our fellow mortals. There's a good spot. Forgive what's happening to the dolphins of the world. Forgive what's happening to the whales. Forgive what's happening to the honeybees of the world. And begin to really, really, really focus on your gratitude for the sanctity of life in all creatures. Do these things while you're being energetically engorged through those practices. Make sure you do these things, because once, as I said before, it's not all about just collecting as much energy and then going about your day. Not about that at all. You need balance, and if you don't pay attention to the emotional body, you're going to lose that balance. If you're doing devotion, if you're doing strong levels of devotion, well, I also want you to pay attention, because even though devotion is a very strong, loving activity, you really got to get rid of any of the blocks that you have that are laying there, waiting for forgiveness, waiting for tolerance, waiting for honesty, waiting for some of the higher ethics to be applied to it. Now, I would like to say a few thank yous right now. I'd like to say thank you to Josephine Smith. I'd like to say thank you to her for giving me the tools that I need to do this show. For giving me, out of the goodness of her heart and the graciousness of her being, for doing these things. So thank you, Josephine. I see you're on the phone there, and I just want to thank you. And I want to thank Ed Blank, because Ed won't let me say his last name because he's not into self-aggrandizement. But I want to thank Ed for also giving me the tools to be able to do this work. I want to thank him for that. I want to thank all of you who have donated to this work that myself and Amelia and many other people are doing. I want to say thank you for allowing allowing this work to go forward. Thank you to you, and thank you to your Kundalini. It's a blessing to be able to do this work, and I feel very honored to be able to do this work. So thank you. You know, those of you that are adding your hard-earned money, into this equation. And I want you to know that we are open to donations. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to have Centaur come over here, and she's going to give you some of those destinations where you can do that graceful thing. And here she is.
Hi, everybody. And this is the place you can go to if you want to make a donation. It's www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And in the upper right-hand corner, you will find the donate button. And there is also another one that you can go to, and that is www.chrism-kundalini.blogspot.com. And again, there's a donate button there. And as we always say, donations are not, it's something that you feel you have to do. But if you are in a position to do so, they are gratefully received. So thank you very much, everybody. And at this point, I would like to add, Chrism has another event that is coming up next Saturday the 5th. He is going to be doing a one-day workshop. It's connected with the event that he did last week, and you can go to the website there and you will receive some information about it. But just to let you know that it's www.tcche.org, and I will give you the address of where the workshop is happening. It is the Study Society, 151 Talgott Road, London W149DA. And that workshop is happening from 10 in the morning until 5 in the afternoon. And I'm looking forward to meeting some of the people from Facebook there. And Manisha is going to be there, and many other people. So looking forward to that. So thank you very much.
And thank you, Amelia, for those announcements. Yes, indeed, doing another workshop here, a one-day workshop from 10 to 5. Would love to see any of you here, anybody who can make it. So please do come. Had the pleasure of meeting some new Kundalini friends here in merry old England, and it's been a great blessing, and I look forward to seeing more people as they make that available. So continuing with my thank yous, I'd like to thank Amelia and her husband John for this show that is reaching out to you right now, into your ears right now. They're paying the cold hard cash every month to Blog Talk Radio, and Blog Talk doesn't make it easy on us. But this show is going out there right now. I mean, we've been going out for an hour and 1 minute, and so it's a blessing that they're providing their time and their money, and I want to say thank you to them. I'd like to thank Francine Victoria in Santa Rosa for allowing all the Kundalini people to come and to congregate in Northern California in a beautiful sunny environment of Santa Rosa. What a great gift that is. And so, much gratitude, so much gratitude. I could use the rest of the time for this show just to express the gratitude to, but there's some more announcements that I want to make. And one of the announcements is that the ayahuasca journey is going forward. We have found a place. If you go to Ayahuasca Peru group on Facebook, we are indeed going to be going to Shaman Alonso's place up there right outside of Cusco, Peru. So make sure that you bring your hiking shoes and that you're not afraid to chew the coca leaves, because that's over 10,000 feet altitude just at the base, right where that city is. So you don't want to have oxygen deprivation and ruin your whole trip that way, which is what exactly would happen if you don't chew that coca leaf, which they pass out at the hotels. This is not cocaine. This they'll distill cocaine from it, but it's as different as sugar cane is from rum. They got sugar cane in rum, but it's not the sugar cane that's doing it. It's the alcohol. So you chew the coca leaf up there, and you're going to be just fine. We will be exploring the medicine of the forest there. I made some interesting contacts here in London with regards to that, and perhaps we'll see that gentleman over there as well. I would like to thank Eduardo. for helping me organize this whole thing, this ayahuasca journey. And I'd like to thank those of you that have signed up, that have already bought your tickets. That would be Magali. This would be Magdalinda Deus. This would be Santara, myself, Josephine, and Rosemary, and Book, and a few other people. Shiv has bought their tickets, and those who are planning on buying their tickets. Cole Dickinson, I believe, has bought his ticket. So I'm really, really, really looking forward to a beautiful time down there in Peru with all of you, exploring the Kundalini through the eyes of the ayahuasca, and look forward to having that amazing experience with all of you that are coming. So very, very grateful for that. Anyway, because we're doing this from a motel room, and I'm not sure how secure this connection is going to be, I'm going to make this an hour show. But I want you to ask yourself, what are you willing to martyr for your Kundalini continuum? Ask yourself that question. I'll see you next week, everybody. Thank you.